Sometimes the smallest shifts, things you barely even notice, can lead to absolutely massive changes down the line. Think about like an airplane just slightly off course at takeoff. It could end up landing in a totally different city, right? That's kind of the core idea behind how our habits shape us, not just what we do, but who we actually become. And today, we're doing a deep dive into a really influential book that unpacks all of this, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, and our mission here is really to pull out the most important bits of wisdom from this book for you, the listener. Think of it as a shortcut, helping you understand these practical strategies for building good habits, broken bad ones. I mean, the author himself, James Clear, he really had to live these principles. He bounced back from a pretty horrific injury and used these small habits to get stronger, perform better, build a business. So this book, it genuinely offers a kind of step-by-step plan to help you reach your potential.
Okay, so to really get a feel for the power of these atomic habits, we should probably start with the author's own story. It's pretty incredible, right? Can you kind of set the scene for us, that moment in high school?
Absolutely. Yeah, Clear shares this story. Final day of his sophomore year, he gets hit smack in the face with a baseball bat. And it wasn't just a little bump, crushed nose, multiple skull fractures, shattered eye sockets. I mean, it put him in a coma. The recovery was, as you can imagine, long, really difficult. He even got cut from the varsity baseball team, which was devastating for him. And this is the key part. That massive challenge became the catalyst. It forced him to rely on these tiny, consistent habits just to rebuild his life. And well, it worked. He ended up becoming the top male athlete at his university, an academic All-American, and eventually this renowned expert on habits, which led to Atomic Habits.
It almost sounds too simple, that just a 1% improvement day after day can really transform things so drastically.
It does, but that's the power behind what's called the aggregation of marginal gains. Dave Brailsford, the guy who took over British cycling, he really championed this. I mean, for almost a century, British cyclists were, well, let's just say mediocre. 1 Olympic gold since 1908, 0 Tour de France wins in 110 years. Brailsford's idea was simple but radical. Improve everything by just 1%. Everything. The bike seats, the tires, the massage gel, even the pillows the athletes slept on. Just tiny tweaks everywhere.
Wow. And the results were pretty staggering, weren't they?
Well, completely transformed them. Multiple Olympic gold, Tour de France wins. It was extraordinary.
And the math behind it is kind of mind-blowing. Like 1% better each day for a year. You end up, 37 times better? But get 1% worse each day, and you basically dwindle down to almost nothing. So success isn't really about those huge overnight transformations we often imagine. It's the compound interest of these tiny daily habits.
Exactly. And that shifts the focus, doesn't it? What matters more than your results right now is your current trajectory. Yeah. Your outcomes, your bank account, your weight, they're just lagging measures of your habits. Like your net worth reflects your spending habits. Your weight reflects your eating habits. The book puts it bluntly. You get what you repeat. So are those tiny daily choices, those little gains or losses, putting you on the path you want to be on? Yeah. That's the real question.
Right. And this is where that idea of the plateau of latent potential comes in. That frustrating bit where you feel like you're working hard but seeing zero results. The book calls it the valley of disappointment. It feels like nothing's happening.
Yeah. And so many people quit there. The book uses this great analogy of an ice cube. Imagine it's in a room heating up from, say, 25 degrees to 31 degrees. You don't see any change in the ice cube, right? But then at 32 degrees, bam, it starts melting. All that work you put in, even when you couldn't see it, wasn't wasted. It was being stored up, building the potential, waiting for that breakthrough moment, that overnight success story. It's usually just the result of all that unseen effort finally hitting the tipping point. And, this whole idea of stored work and plateaus, it leads nicely into why focusing just on goals can actually be a bit problematic. Goals are important, sure, but relying only on them. Well, the book points out a few issues. First, hitting a goal is often just a temporary change. You clean your room, goal achieved. But if your tidying habits don't change, it's messy again pretty fast. Second, goals can kind of restrict happiness, right? You tell yourself, I'll be happy when I lose 10 pounds or when I get that promotion. Happiness gets postponed. And third, goals often set up this either-or situation. Either you succeed or you fail. It ignores all the progress you might make along the way.
Okay, so instead of just staring at the finish line, we should be focusing on, how we're running the race, the systems we use. If we get the inputs right, the habits, the daily processes, then the outputs, the results, they'll sort of take care of themselves.
Exactly. Fix the system, and the results tend to follow. And this connects to what the book calls the 3 layers of behavior change. You've got outcomes, what you get, process is what you do, and identity, what you believe.
Mhm.
Most powerful way to change habits, according to the book, isn't just focusing on what you want to achieve. It's about focusing on who you wish to become. Every single action you take, no matter how small, is like casting a vote for the type of person you want to be.
Casting a vote. I like that. It makes it feel active, doesn't it? So if I want to be a writer, every time I sit down and write, even just a paragraph, that's a vote for I'm a writer. Is that why change sticks sometimes and not others? Because it's tied to our actual identity, who we see ourselves as.
Precisely. The book argues that real lasting behavior change is identity change.
Yeah.
It's about shifting your self-image.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you take pride in being someone who's fit, you're much less likely to skip workouts.
Right.
Right? Because it's part of who you are. It's not just something you do. This idea of voting for your identity, it's really central to the whole philosophy in Atomic Habits. So how do we actually do this? The book lays out these 4 laws of behavior change, which are based on this neurological feedback loop, the habit loop.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 4 stages: cue, craving, response, reward. Your brain cycles through these automatically for established habits. It's efficient, frees up your mind.
And it's wild how much of this runs on autopilot. The book mentions things like a former teacher still asking coworkers if they wash their hands, or an ex-lifeguard yelling walk at a running kid. These habits are so ingrained we don't even realize we're doing them sometimes. Which means awareness has to be step 1, right?
Absolutely. You can't change a habit if you don't know it exists. That's why behavior change always starts with awareness. The book suggests doing a habit scorecard. Literally just listing out your daily habits to see them clearly. Good, bad, neutral. Just getting them down on paper.
Okay, awareness is step 1. But for those really unconscious habits, how do you make them conscious? I remember reading about this Japanese railway technique, pointing and calling. How does that work?
Oh yeah, that's a great example. It's a safety system. Train operators literally point at signals and instruments and call out their status aloud. Signal is green. It forces them to engage multiple senses: sight, touch, speech, hearing, making it much harder to miss something important. It brings the non-conscious action into conscious focus. And you can apply this yourself. Like if you're reaching for a cookie you know you shouldn't have, actually say it out loud. I'm about to eat this cookie, but I don't need it. This goes against my goal of being healthier. Just verbalizing it can sometimes be enough to make you pause and reconsider. It makes the consequence feel more immediate.
Okay, so that leads us into the first law. Make it obvious, making the cues for good habits impossible to miss.
Right. And one powerful technique for this is using implementation intentions.
Which is basically getting super specific, right? Not just, I'll exercise more, but I will behavior at time and location, like I will do 10 push-ups at 7 a.m. in my living room. That clarity makes it much harder to skip.
Exactly. And you can build on that with habit stacking. This is where you link a new habit you want to form with one you already do automatically. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit. So maybe after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. You're basically using the momentum of your existing habit to launch the new one.
That makes sense. And then there's literally changing your surroundings, right? Environment design. Like if you want to practice guitar more, don't hide it in the closet. Leave it on a stand where you'll see it constantly. Want to drink more water? Keep a bottle on your desk.
Totally. Make the cues for your good habits obvious and visible. And interestingly, the book notes that it's often easier to change habits in a new environment. Why? Because you escape all the old triggers and cues that are tied to your previous routines. If you can't change your whole environment, at least try the one space, one use idea. Don't eat, work, and watch TV all on the same couch. Try to dedicate spaces for specific activities. It helps keep the cues clear.
And the flip side for bad habits, the inversion of the first law, make it invisible. That Vietnam War heroin study in the book is just
Wow.
It shows how powerful environmental cues are. Soldiers got addicted over there, but most didn't relapse back home because the triggers were gone.
It's a stark illustration. It shows that willpower, trying to just resist temptation in the same environment, is often a losing battle. Self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term one. The most practical way to break a bad habit: reduce your exposure to the cue that triggers it. If your phone distracts you from work, put it in another room. If you snack mindlessly while watching TV, don't eat in front of the TV. Make the cues invisible. Okay, moving on to the second law. Make it attractive. This taps into how our brains work, specifically with dopamine. We used to think dopamine was just about feeling pleasure, but the research shows it's more about the anticipation of pleasure, that Expectation, that craving, is what really drives us to act. Our wanting circuits are huge.
Ah, so that's where temptation bundling fits in. I loved that example of the engineering student Ronan Byrne. He hooked up his exercise bike to Netflix, so it would only play if he was cycling above a certain speed. Brilliant. He bundled something he wanted to do, watch Netflix, with something he needed to do, exercise.
Exactly. The formula is basically, after habit I need, I will habit I want. You pair an action you should do with one you look forward to doing. And another huge factor in making things attractive is our social environment. We are deeply influenced by the norms of the groups we belong to. We imitate the habits of essentially three groups: the close, family, friends; the many, our culture, society; and the powerful, people with status we admire. That chimpanzee example where a chimp adopts a less efficient nut-cracking method just to fit in with a new group shows how strong that pull to belong really is. We want to fit in.
Okay, law 3. Make it easy. This seems pretty straightforward, but there's nuance here, right? Like the difference between just planning and actually doing.
Yes. The book distinguishes between motion and action. Motion is planning, strategizing, learning, like reading articles about writing. Action is actually doing the thing like writing sentences. Motion feels productive, but it doesn't produce results on its own. For habits, repetition is key. You need reps.
Like that ceramics class story. The group graded on quantity, just making tons of pots, actually ended up making better quality pots than the group focused only on perfection. They just got way more practice. Action trumps motion.
Exactly. And this ties into the law of least effort. Humans are wired to conserve energy. We naturally drift towards the option that requires the least work. Think about friction. The book uses Jared Diamond's point about agriculture spreading faster east-west than north-south because the climate zones were more similar. Less friction, easier spread. So if you want to build a good habit, you need to reduce the friction associated with it. Make it as easy as possible to do.
Which leads to priming the environment. Getting things ready beforehand so the action itself is easier when the time comes, like laying out your workout clothes the night before, or prepping meals on Sunday for the week. It removes those little decision points and effort barriers.
Precisely. Reduce the friction. And a fantastic way to start any new habit is the 2-minute rule. Whatever the habit is, scale it down so the very first step takes less than 2 minutes. Read before bed becomes read 1 page. Do yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. The goal isn't to only do 2 minutes forever. It's to master the art of showing up. To make starting the habit incredibly easy, you have to standardize before you can optimize. Doing something is always better than doing nothing. And finally, law 4. Make it satisfying. This is crucial because our brains are wired to repeat behaviors that bring immediate rewards. The cardinal rule of behavior change, as the book calls it. What is immediately rewarded gets repeated. What is immediately punished gets avoided.
Right, and this clashes with so many good habits where the reward is delayed, isn't it? Like, saving money, the reward is far off. Eating healthy, the benefits take time. But bad habits, instant gratification. Smoking, junk food, the reward is immediate. That Karachi hand-washing study with the nice-smelling Safeguard soap really highlights this. Making the act itself immediately pleasant, the nice lather, the good smell, dramatically increased how often people did it, even though they already knew it was important.
Exactly. You need to find a way to inject some immediate satisfaction into good habits. One idea is creating a visual measure of progress, like moving a paperclip from one jar to another each time you make a sales call, or transferring money into a savings account labeled vacation fund every time you skip an unnecessary purchase. Find ways to give yourself an immediate signal of success that feels good and aligns with your identity.
And habit tracking fits here too, right? Just marking an X on a calendar or using an app, it works on multiple levels. It's obvious, visual cue, it's attractive, shows progress, and it's satisfying. Checking the box feels good. It's like getting that little dopamine hit for doing the right thing. Plus, it's visual proof you're casting those votes for your desired identity.
Absolutely. Tracking reinforces the behavior. But life happens. You're going to miss a day sometimes. The crucial advice here is never miss twice. Don't let one slip up derail you completely. Perfection isn't the goal. Consistency is. Missing one workout is an accident. Missing 2 starts a new negative habit. So the most important thing after missing a day is to get back on track immediately the next day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Reaffirm that identity.
Okay, and what about making bad habits unsatisfying? That seems key too. The book mentions accountability partners.
Yes, or even a habit contract. This involves stating your intention and having a penalty if you fail. Like that guy Brian Harris, who had a contract where if he failed to track his food intake, he had to dress up in a suit for work the next day and pay his trainer $200. Knowing there's an immediate cost, financial or social, like Letting down an accountability partner makes the pain of not doing the bad habit more immediate. It uses that immediate punishment principle to your advantage. So those are the 4 laws. But the book also touches on some more advanced ideas, like the role of genetics or talent. The point isn't that genes determine your destiny, but they might indicate where your efforts could be most rewarding. Play a game where the odds are in your favor. Work hard on things that come a bit more naturally to you.
And that links to the Goldilocks rule, doesn't it? Finding that sweet spot of difficulty. Tasks that aren't too easy, you get bored, but not too hard, you get discouraged. Like Steve Martin gradually making his comedy routine just a little bit longer, a little bit harder each time, just enough challenge to stay engaged.
Right? You need challenges that are just manageable. But even then, the biggest threat often becomes boredom. Anyone can work hard when they feel motivated. But pros, the people who achieve mastery, they stick to the schedule, even when it's boring, even when they don't feel like it. They fall in love with the process, even the tedious parts.
And to make sure that process doesn't become mindless repetition, the book stresses reflection and review. Like the LA Lakers tracking detailed stats to find those tiny 1% improvements, you have to periodically check in. Is this still working? Can I do better? How can I improve the system?
Yeah, constant improvement. And another subtle but powerful point is keeping your identity small. Don't tie your entire sense of self too tightly to one role, like I am a CEO or I am an athlete, because when that role changes, it can cause an identity crisis. Instead, define yourself by broader, more adaptable traits. I'm the type of person who is disciplined, or I'm someone who loves a challenge. That flexibility helps you navigate change.
So it all comes back to understanding these fundamental drivers, doesn't it? Craving gets you started, reward keeps you going, feelings influence actions. Actions influence feelings.
Exactly. And the book leaves us with this interesting thought. Maybe suffering, or at least dissatisfaction, is what drives progress. That desire for change fuels action. But true contentment might come from managing that desire, from finding satisfaction in the process itself, liking minus wanting, as the book puts it.
So wrapping this up, Atomic Habits really offers this incredibly practical toolkit. It's a step-by-step guide using these 4 laws, make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying to build the habits that ultimately shape who you are.
So the final thought for you, the listener, is this. What tiny atomic change could you make today? What small action can you take to cast a vote for the person you want to become? Think about how you can design your world, tweak your routines just slightly to make those good choices almost inevitable. Because those tiny choices, they really do define your future.